welcome to Verbling. I'm teacher Oakley, and for the next hour here on Verbling, we are going to be analyzing and practicing the future perfect continuous tense. Da-dun, da-dun. Okay, we're going to look at how it is formed and look at how it is used, and students will have a chance to practice using the future perfect continuous tense by forming some of their own sentences. Make sure they have the right idea. We'll talk about it related to other verb tenses and choosing which tense to use. And we'll also look at some particulars, some specific things to keep in mind when you're using future perfect continuous and choosing it over other verb tenses. Okay. First of all, we need to look at how the kind of hard to tongue twister. Future perfect continuous tense. First of all, we'll look at how it's formed. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share here, and we'll talk about it. All right. Future perfect continuous tense. All right. Now, okay. First of all, the future perfect continuous tense has two different forms. Okay. Will have been doing the will form and the going to form. Be going to have been doing. It's a mouthful, huh? The good thing is, unlike simple future forms, you really don't have to concern yourself with which form you use. Okay, when you use when you use simple future tenses, really that's the only verb tense where you have with future tenses you have the will form and the going to form. You only really have to worry about using one or the other when it comes to simple future sentence constructions. Generally speaking, in simple future sentences, you use going to when you're talking about a plan, something that you've thought of before, a previous idea that is planned at this point. And you use will for things you think of right now, like volunteering to do something or making a request. Will you open the window? Or making an offer to do something. These types of things we use will in the simple future. Going to is more for plans. Both can be used to make predictions. However, future perfect continuous, we don't have to really concern ourselves with that today. Okay, before we look at exactly how to form this and start talking about the uses, let me welcome Gregors. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you again. Long time no see. Yeah, how have you been?
I'm fine. I was working and now I quit the job, so I have no time to take classes before I find the new one.
Okay. When people tell me that, I don't know if I should say, well, that's great, it's good to have you in class, or, oh, I'm sorry, you're not working.
No.
I don't know what to say, man.
No, those kind of things. Not very positive job, not very good. It wasn't a very good job. It won't be probably a better job, so let's say that I just struggled to come from one job to the next one and hope it will be
okay.
A bit better.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, anyway, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
All right. And Carolina has also joined us. Hi, hey, Carolina. Welcome back. Hello again. Carolina, are you there? Okay, let's look at the forms. Exactly word by word how the tense is formed. So one way to form future perfect continuous with will. First auxiliary is will, then have been. It's always will have been, regardless of first, second, third person, plural or singular. And the present participle. The present participle you will know as the verb plus ing, the continuous form, the ing form. And it looks like this in a sentence. Positive sentence, affirmative sentence, subject noun always first, then your verb construction, will have been waiting, all together. For more than 2 hours when her plane finally arrives. Notice the introduction of a second clause here. All right, talk more about that later. In the question form, as always in every verb tense, the first auxiliary will go first. It will be transposed or reversed with the subject noun, whatever the subject noun is. The entire subject noun, including if there happens to be any quantifiers or adjectives or whatever. Okay. Will the three of you have been waiting, for example? All right. All right, and then the rest of the verb construction, and then the rest of the sentence is pretty much the same with the question mark. When her plane finally arrives. Okay. By the way, if you happen to need to add an interrogative, like when or who or what or where, why will you have been waiting for more than 2 hours when her plane finally arrives? For example, would be a valid sentence. The sentence construction is the same regarding the first auxiliary. You just stick the interrogative in front of it. That's it. Okay, and finally the negative. Again, subject noun first. Notice placement of the not as an it's an adverb really. This is where it belongs, after the first auxiliary or helper verb. Okay, so the negative will always follow the first auxiliary. Usually not, but it could possibly be never. All right. You do have a couple options. In speaking, we tend to use contracted forms of pronouns and auxiliaries. In this case, in this example, it's possible to say you'll, you will, contracted, you'll not have been waiting. However, it would be more likely, native speakers tend to contract the auxiliary and not adverbs. And in this case, future tenses, will and not becomes won't. Why is it won't? Well, because it would be very hard to say won't. That's why. Won't. You won't have been waiting. Never mind. It's just won't. There you go. You won't have been waiting. You won't have. Notice when I say it, I'm contracting ya. You gets reduced to ya. Won't. Have gets reduced to of. You won't have been. You won't have been waiting, or even just to You won't have been waiting for more than 2 hours. Okay, so.
Also, you won't have been waiting would be correct without the T.
You won't have. Well, oh, it's okay. The T is there, but it's not dropped. Yeah, it's not fully aspirated. You don't hear the full ch. You won't have. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you start to form the sound, but you don't really drop the tongue from the top of your mouth. Yeah,
okay.
You're right.
Okay, I get it.
Okay. All right, let's look at the next really kind of clunky form. really kind of complicated. Some people like to use it, though. Again, it doesn't matter which form you use. Let me quickly check to see if Carolina is all in
Hello,
here.
teacher.
Okay, good. All right.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah. I didn't know about your connection. All right, this second form. All right, first of all, the verb to be, the auxiliary or helper verb to be. Of course, contingent on first, second, third person. I am, he, she, or it is, you, they, or we are. And then the entire construction, this part remains the same, always going to have been. And then our present participle, our ing form of our main verb. Okay. It's basically the same sentence. Basically, the construction is the same as with will. Subject, noun first, and then the entire construction, rest of the sentence. You're going to have been waiting. You're going to have been waiting for more than 2 hours when our plane finally arrives. It really is quite a mouthful. Same idea with the question form. First auxiliary gets paired off and reversed with the subject noun. Are you going to have been waiting for more than 2 hours when our plane finally arrives? And the negative. Okay, again, you can say you're not going to have been waiting for more than 2 hours, or you aren't going to have been waiting. You can say it either way, contracting you are or are not. Really perfectly okay to say it either way. You aren't going to have been waiting. Going to, when it is actually used in future tenses as an auxiliary form, it's often reduced to gonna, like G-O-N-N-A, gonna. Okay, you can't reduce it when it is the main verb. You are going to France. You can't reduce it because now it's going is the main verb. This is the same always. The verb to be, do, going to, any of these auxiliaries have or have, has, had. When they are an auxiliary or helper verb, they're usually reduced in pronunciation by native speakers. When they are the main verb, you can never, ever, ever reduce pronunciation of a main verb. Okay. Anyway, basically, form is still the same. Again, little or no difference in meaning if you want to use the will form or the be going to form. Okay. Let's look at the usage. We'll look at some examples, and then you guys are gonna practice forming some sentences. All right. Use number one. All right. Duration. It's used to show duration. That's what continuous tenses are for, to show that an action took duration along, well, not necessarily a long period of time, but you're kind of stressing that period of time when you use a continuous tense. Duration before something in the future, of course, it's a future tense. Looking at the little diagram here, the green line represents the future perfect continuous tense in the sentence, and the little purple X will show a particular event or possibly a future time. This could be an action or a time, the little purple X. So, the future perfect continuous will show that something continues up until a particular event or time in the future. Very common to clarify or add emphasis to the duration. It's very common to have little time phrases, like for 5 minutes, for 2 weeks, since Friday. This helps to clarify it. Okay. All right. Very much related to present perfect continuous and past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous. However, the duration stops at or before a certain reference point in the future. Past perfect obviously stops before a specific point in the past. And the present perfect shows duration up until now, the present, obviously. Okay, well, all right. So, one more thing before we look at examples. Notice the green line here. It can start actually before now. It can start now. It can start slightly. It can start in the future. So this beginning part here, this could be actually in the past. It could be now. It could be in the future. But there will be duration before this kind of interrupting action or specific time in the future. Okay, let's look at some examples, and then you guys can practice. They will have been talking for over an hour by the time Thomas arrives. By the time, okay, this is a common time phrase used with this verb tense. Okay, they will have been talking for over an hour. All right, we don't really know if I'm speaking in the present, obviously. We don't know if they already started talking in the past. They just started talking right now. If they're going to start talking in 5 minutes from now in the future, we don't really know. That's my point about this green line can move. That is not defined by the verb tense. We're not sure. Okay, we know it will be over an hour. That green line will be an hour long or over an hour by the time Thomas arrives. All right, Thomas arrived is the little purple X here. Okay, that's sudden action. Okay, she's going to have been working at that company for 3 years when it finally closes. Same idea, it closes. James will have been teaching at the university for more than a year by the time he leaves for Asia. Notice the verb tense in the second clause here, the interrupting action. Notice that verb tense is always simple present. And there's a very good reason for that. Because we simply can never ever with subordinators, okay, subordinating conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that join two clauses. Subordinating conjunctions that are time subordinators, time-related subordinators that join the two phrases together, we can never use a future tense after one of these. So by the time, or when, or any others, before, after, as soon as, okay, any of these, when, while, even subordinators if or unless. You cannot use future tenses, any future tenses, whether they be perfect, continuous, or simple. You cannot use any future tenses in a clause that starts with a time subordinator. Ever. So that rule follows here. That is a solid rule. There are no weird English exemptions from that rule, as we often see in English grammar rules. There are no exemptions. You can never ever have a future tense with it following a time subordinator. Question form. Okay, how long will you have been studying when you graduate? Okay. Okay, notice in this dialogue example, when you finish your English course, will you have been living in New Zealand for over a year? By the way, with any of these examples, it is possible to use the subordinate clause first. When we get to Anchorage, we're going to have been driving for over 3 days straight. It never matters in a complex sentence. You can have the subordinating clause first, or you can have it second. The only difference is if I move when we get to Anchorage first, I need to have a comma. When the subordinating clause goes first, you need to have a comma in the sentence. When it's second, obviously, as in this example, there's no comma necessary. Okay, when you finish your English course, will you have been living in New Zealand for over a year? No, I will not have been living here that long. Notice that I don't have to reference this action, finish your English course. I don't have to reference the time duration. It's already spoken. The other person, A, said it, so it's not necessary to repeat it. You can reference it without using it and still use the verb tense. This is very true in speaking. This is a dialogue here. It's also true in writing. Well, the basic rule is if it's in the same paragraph, then you can reference a sentence 2 or 3 or 4 sentences previous. You can reference a time or an action, a future time or action, 3 or 4 sentences later when you're writing in a paragraph, and still use the future perfect continuous verb tense. It's possible to do that. Generally, the necessary reference has to be in the same paragraph. It has to be before it. Okay. Again, the reference points in the future are all in simple present. Yep, you just cannot use future tenses and time clauses. Okay. All right, so again, duration of something before something in the future. Let's see if by using the examples we can form our own sentences. Grigors, you want to give this a try?
Okay. I will be. Sorry. I will not. Jesus Christ. I will have been reading. Reading a book for a week. When I will finish. So when I finish.
Ah, you caught it.
Yeah,
Very good. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yes. When I
finish.
Yeah.
When I finish making notes about it.
Okay. Or you just finish the book. It's fine as well. Okay, finish making notes. Okay. Either way. Okay, I will have been reading a book for a week. Okay, perfect usage. It's very clear. It's extremely clear because you have your time phrase. Okay, just a note about that. Okay, you've made this perfectly clear. All right. Depending on the verb you're using, in this case we have the verb reading. We all know and understand that reading is something that takes time. It's not an instantaneous action. It's very obvious. It's very obvious what that action is. So it is not always entirely necessary to have a little time phrase like this, provided that the verb is extremely obviously an action that takes a long time to do. Okay. Uh, I could deal with this. I will have been reading a book when I finish making my notes. Oh, okay. I will have been reading a book when he arrives. Okay. Well, not necessarily with your sentence. No, it's necessary in your sentence.
No.
Okay. Yeah, you
Uh,
need to have it. But if you said something like, "I will have been reading a book when he arrives," that's fine. Okay.
yeah, yeah, I get it. I'm
Right.
thinking about the situation when I actually try to plan in this way that I give myself a week,
Mm,
and I'll finish this book, and I after the end of the week, my notes will be finished too because
right.
it will happen eventually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, yeah, that's the right idea. That's the right idea. Uh, okay. Um, all right.
Because I just, if I thinking correctly, I just want to finish a book, but I also want to make a notes at the same time. So it's just like my notes will be finished, and I also will be reading a book for this period of the time.
Mm-hmm. No, this sentence is perfectly okay, and it's exactly the idea, the usage we're trying to illustrate here. Okay.
Okay.
It's perfect. Carolina,
Okay.
go ahead, give it a try.
Uh, in Christmas Eve, my mother is going to have been cooking for all morning
He's going to.
to have been cooking for all morning or all morning
Okay. Let's look.
when
Oh, okay.
when
Mhm.
we arrive when we arrive.
Okay. Now, all right. Let's a few small problems. First of all, Christmas Eve is a specific day, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So what preposition do we use with days, like Tuesday, Wednesday? Do we say in Tuesday?
On Tuesday.
Correct. On Tuesday. So if you're mentioning a very specific day, if it's a holiday or what have you, on my birthday, on Christmas Eve. Okay. Uh, this is a little confusing. It's definitely on Christmas Eve. It's a little confusing because we also use at. At Christmas, I will be at my mother's house. Because when we use at, uh, we're talking about the holiday, not the day. It's confusing, I know. If I say on Christmas Day, I will be at my parents', if I actually use the word day, I have to use on. All right. At Christmas, I will go to my parents. I'm talking about, oh, the days before it, the holidays, maybe the day after, whatever. The general thing. I'm talking about the holiday, not the day. Christmas Eve, because of Eve, it's clearly a specific day. Okay? That's why.
Okay.
Okay, on Christmas Eve, my mother is going to have been cooking uh, for all morning. Here, it's not really necessary
Okay.
to have four. You can just say all morning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have to use four for specific times, for 3 hours, for 5 minutes, for 10 weeks. Okay, all morning is not. It's kind of general, you know. So it doesn't really work with four. Okay, we're going to have been cooking all morning when we arrive. Yeah, and that's fine. Uh, hmm. Okay, that's fine. It's very nearly that you don't even need to have this extra phrase. This is a very tricky sentence because one thing we haven't looked at is in reference to a specific time. No, all of our purple X's have been actions, but I don't know if Christmas Eve isn't quite specific enough, you know. What I'm talking about is okay, for example, if I can take your sentence and copy it and play around with it for a minute, I just want to show you something. Whoops, what happened? Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, if I change this, if I want to change this a little by, I don't know, whatever, 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, now a specific time. By 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, my mother is going to been cooking all, not morning, because that's 7 p.m., all day, period. Okay, what we haven't looked at yet is a specific time, which is the purple X. 7 p.m. Christmas Eve, purple X. Mother cooking all day, that's the green line. Okay? So it can also be used this way. It's almost able to do it here, but Christmas Eve is just not a specific enough time. You're talking about, you know, a span of hours, and also Christmas Eve is, that's a tricky one. Christmas Eve is two things. It's the whole entire 24-hour day before Christmas, and Christmas Eve is also the evening, the nighttime before Christmas. It's actually both of those things. So it's a tricky one to play around with and to understand. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Another common usage of the future perfect continuous is to talk about cause and effect, cause of something in the future. Okay, for example, Jason will be tired when he gets home. Notice we have 1, will be tired, simple future. 2, second clause, when he gets home. No future tense there. Third clause, because he will have been jogging for over an hour. All right. Cause and effect. Jason will be tired because he will have been jogging for over an hour. Actually, this middle clause is not really necessary, just extra information. Claudia's English will be perfect when she returns to Germany because she's going to have been studying English in the United States for over 2 years. Oh my goodness. Wow. All right. Again, I don't know if this when clause is actually necessary. It's just, I guess, useful for extra information. Okay. Cause and effect. All right, where the cause is the green line, a continuous action, and the effect is the purple X. All right, let's try this one out. Grigors, give it a shot.
Okay. The issue with my microphone will be fixed when I going to have been.
Can't use a future tense after when.
Yeah, future tense.
Cannot. Yeah, after when.
Okay, I cannot use it when. How to use it? Okay, maybe. Can I scroll up because I have to look at the first example?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, because okay, I got the idea of it.
Okay.
Because
yeah. Instead of when.
Yeah, because I'm going to have been solving.
Oh, okay. Good.
Solving it for No, can I say it, for example, I'm going to put enough time actually to put by solving it to put I don't know how to form in the sentence when I try to put as many effort, as many hours it is possible to make it work.
Sorry, sorry. Are you talking about the?
Possibility that there's no precise time. I have a problem with my microphone, and I think I will fix it in 3 hours, but it could be 2 days. So, for example, I
Aha.
just
Right.
I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand. All right. So how do we say that? Wait. Okay, you're testing me here. All right. We're going to have been solving it. Well, if you can use vague time clauses for days, for weeks, for.
Even maybe I'll be solving it, even if it could take me a week, for example.
Well, that's another one. Okay. Even if, okay, I'll be solving it for as long as it takes. There's a very vague statement of time, duration. As long as it takes. How long will it take you to finish? As long as it takes. Okay, very vague. 5 minutes, 500 years. It doesn't. All right. Even if it takes me weeks, that's another good one. Good one for yours. Yeah.
I think I had the first one, but I never really use it.
Mm.
So that's the problem.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. All right, I'm glad you asked me about that because that is actually important. This green line can be really anything. If you're talking about, I don't know, a nuclear reaction, that green line cause and effect may be all of 2 seconds, or 1 second, or 15 microseconds. Who knows? If the effect is a nuclear explosion, for example. Okay. The future time has to be specifically referenced, either as an action or it has to be a specific time, not vague. But this duration can be anything, and it does not have to be specific, as we were just talking about. The duration can be unknown because it's the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right, that's a very good point. Okay. Good. That's good. That's an interesting point that needed to be made. So thank you. All right, Carolina, cause and effect.
Okay. I am going. No. Yeah. I will be excited when I go to the concert because I will have been waiting for 3 months.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent because the actual main verb waiting is frequently used with continuous tenses, especially perfect continuous tenses, present, past, and future. It's common. Waiting is clearly a verb that takes a lot of time. Well, so, all right. Actions that take time are usually the actions that you're going to be using with continuous tenses. Duh, kind of follows. Okay. Okay. Here is another interesting point I would like to share with you. Future continuous versus future perfect continuous. If you do not include a duration, like for 5 minutes, for 2 weeks, as long as it takes, many English speakers might choose to use future continuous rather than future perfect continuous. But you must be careful when doing so because it can change the meaning or intention of the sentence. Because the future continuous, when you use like a when clause with a future continuous, the idea is that the continuous action has been interrupted. It emphasizes the interrupted action. It tends to actually interrupt emphasize the purple X. Whereas future perfect continuous emphasizes a duration of time before something in the future. So you're really, well, the main emphasis on Carolina's last sentence will have been waiting for 3 months. When you're speaking this, you would actually emphasize it with your intonation. I will be excited when I go to the concert because I will have been waiting for 3 months. You would actually vocalize with your intonation the emphasis on the duration. It would be very common when speaking and using this verb tense. Okay, so let's see if we can get the idea by looking at a couple examples here. Okay, he will be tired because he will be exercising so hard. Okay, at that particular time he will be tired. Now, also there's an inference that he's in the middle of exercising, that he will, excuse me, that when we use just future continuous, I would assume as a native speaker he will be tired because he will be exercising so hard. I would immediately assume that he's going to continue exercising. And that's, so at that exact moment, okay, he will be tired, but he's probably going to continue. Whereas if using the future perfect continuous, he will be tired because he will have been exercising so hard. All right, he will be tired because of the period of time. And also, for me, now this next line I kind of slightly disagree with. It is possible he will still be exercising, yeah, but it is much more likely that you would choose to use this verb tense because he will have just finished. Frankly, I would never ever use this verb tense unless I'm expressing the idea that he has just finished. And frankly, as a native speaker, when I hear this, I would assume that he is just finished, not that he's in the middle. That's the whole reason I use this construction with not perfect, but just future continuous. I want to show it's an interrupting action and it's going to continue. So I would never make the assumption that he's still going to continue. Why would I? I would use the other verb tense. So I guess technically this is true, but it's kind of stupid because I don't know why you would bother to use this verb tense if he's going to be continuing. Really doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so, okay. All right, again, really two things here. Future continuous, basically, it's really what you're emphasizing is that he's tired. He will be tired because he'll be exercising. All right. This definitely emphasizes the duration. Okay, so there's a different emphasis to the sentence. And again, technically, I am not correct. All right, just take it from me as a native speaker. My automatic assumption, if I hear future continuous, is that he's going to continue with his action of duration. And in future perfect, hey, as a native speaker, I would automatically assume that he just finished. Okay. Although technically, I guess that's not correct. All right. Always remember, I've already mentioned it, no future tenses in time clauses. Time expressions, these subordinating conjunctions related to time, these conjunctions that join two clauses together, you cannot ever have a future tense with. They include these and more: when, while, before, after, by the time, as soon as. People often forget if and unless are time subordinators. You can't ever use future tense with if or unless. So, if you have a situation where maybe a very complex sentence where you're using one of these time subordinators, you're going to use present perfect continuous instead of future perfect continuous. Okay, you revert back to the present form. So, for example, you won't get a promotion until you will have been working here as long as Tim, whoever, is not correct. Okay, well, all right, we got interesting until. All right, we simply can't do it. Sometimes these time subordinators are a little difficult to recognize, like if, until, unless. So this second example is correct. You won't get a promotion until you have been working here as long as Tim. You just simply revert back to the present continuous form. Okay? Any questions about that? It's just a no future thing. And that works the same in all verb tenses, by the way. Instead of the future, you revert to the present. Instead of future perfect, you revert to present perfect. Instead of future perfect continuous, present perfect continuous. Instead of future simple, present simple. It's the same thing. Okay, another important note. Whenever you talk about any of the continuous verb tenses, the simple ones or the perfect ones, past, present, future, there are certain verbs that can never be used in a continuous form. These are called non-continuous verbs. That's one name for them. Or mixed verbs are verbs that, under a certain meaning, under a certain definition, they can't be used in a continuous form. Basically, the idea is they're not dynamic. They're not verbs of action and movement. They're verbs that show the state of things, how things are, the state of existence, possession, emotional state, things of that nature. So they just can ever be used with a continuous. For example, Ned will have been having his driver's license for over 2 years does not work because we're talking about his state of existence, having a driver's license or not. So instead we revert back, again, as always, we revert back to the simpler form, just the future perfect. Ned will have had his driver's license for over 2 years. Okay. These verbs, just some more examples to show ownership. You can't use the verb owning. Never. It's never appropriate. Other verbs like verbs that show preference, like, hate, love. You really should never. It's not appropriate to use continuous tenses with these. The verb to be, when it means existence, the sky is blue. I just simply cannot say the sky is being blue. It doesn't make sense. And that's a mixed verb because if I use the verb to be to mean behaving or acting, the children are being good. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The children are behaving good. Okay, the way they're acting, a dynamic action, not the way they are. Okay. All right, I mentioned earlier placement of the adverbs, even with not, you will not, whatever. Same thing with other adverbs, common adverbs that we use to show duration or other elements of time. Okay, acting on the verb, always, only, never, ever. They go the same place as not in a sentence, and that is the best place for them. Occasionally, you can put them in other positions in the sentence, but unfortunately, this is the one place you know it can go. You can put it in other places, and maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. Maybe it will entirely change the meaning of the sentence. So this is, in other words, this is the safe bet. You can gamble and try putting it in other places, but why? This will always be correct after the first auxiliary. Okay. Just a few more minutes, so let's look at this crazy, crazy passive, just so I can introduce you guys to it. Okay, we've been looking at all active sentences so far. Subject is doing the action. The famous artist will have been painting. The object noun, the mural, is the actions happening to the mural. For over 6 months by the time it is finished. Okay. In the passive, okay, the action, the mural is now the subject. The action happens to the mural, just like in an active sentence, but we don't really care who's doing the action. We don't care about the famous artist anymore. In fact, if we want to, we can totally just get rid of this, cut it right out. It doesn't really matter. We use a passive because we don't care who the subject is, who's doing the action. We don't know who's doing the action, or it doesn't matter, or it's very obvious who does the action. Any of those reasons, we might use a passive. Okay, so now the action happens to the mural. The mural will have been being painted for over 6 months by the time it is finished. You see, it doesn't really matter if I get rid of the famous artist. If I want to add him, I can add the prepositional phrase with by, is what we do. Look at the form. Okay. All passives, regardless of verb tense. Simple, perfect, perfect continuous, whatever. All main verbs in all passive forms are always the past participle of the verb. Okay, which is preceded by our recognizable auxiliaries for future perfect continuous will have been, and then the verb to be kind of acts as a model verb to show the actual verb tense we're working with. So will have been being would be a future perfect continuous without any main verb behind it. So that's it. Will have been being painted. Of course, the other form is completely ridiculous. The mural is going to have been being painted. No one's going to say this. It's far too much of a unwieldy mouthful. And in fact, the reality is passive forms of the future perfect continuous are not common because they're just too many words and too difficult to say. So, yes?
How it works in the case of creating essays or books, it looks better if people will say it, for example, I don't know, the cinema is going to have been finished by the opening for the public, something like that.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, is it really works in this case if people like writers or journalists like use those kind of forms when they are writing articles or books, or maybe students when they're writing essays? It makes sense.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth. You because it's unwieldy to speak, unwieldy. You're probably never going to hear this in conversation. Even future perfect continuous, even the active form is usually you can kind of avoid it. So you're absolutely right. Where you're going to see things like this, or where you're ever going to see a passive form, is most likely going to be in formal kind of writing, academic writing, or, yeah, maybe journalism. Sure. Maybe very formal business contracts. All right. The bridge is going to have been being built for 6 months by the time it is finished. Even that is really, yeah, really silly. Okay. Kind of unnecessary, really. Okay. Well, actually, we've only got like a minute or so. Any last questions about this future perfect continuous, or about the main two uses? Again, to review, basically, the main use to show duration for something in the future, or to show cause and effect, a future cause and effect. Those are the main uses of this. Really, the only uses of the future perfect continuous. Well, okay, we're actually pretty much out of time. So thank you, Grigoras. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you.
Patience.
Thank you, teacher.